Hello, everyone. This is part 1 of session 12 of Pre-Socratics to Augustine, also called History of Philosophy 1. We are now talking about Plato's Republic. The Republic is a quite long dialogue, considered one of the so-called middle dialogues. And these so-called middle dialogues are, comparatively speaking, more not necessarily dogmatic, but they do lay out positive views. Whereas the dialogues that we read so far, the Euthyphro and the Meno, they don't end in any positive proposal. They present inquiry, and they come to a lot of insights kind of along the way about the nature of inquiry and that kind of thing, but they don't necessarily make a proposal about some question in philosophy, whereas the Republic aims to make such a proposal. So the Republic starts with 2 questions. One is, what is justice? And that is the type of question that we already know as a what is X question. And the other question is whether justice is to my advantage. Is justice advantageous? And that is a type of question that we also already know. It's one of these how questions. How is justice? Is it advantageous? Is it to the advantage of the just person to be just? And given what we already discussed, it is in and of itself interesting that the Republic kind of immediately starts out with both of these questions in kind of in tandem. And throughout the dialogue, those 2 questions are investigated as a kind of combination. And at the end of the day, it is Plato's goal to show that you are going to be better off if you are a good person or a just person. And that is, however, recognized as an incredibly ambitious goal to show this. Because it could seem that, kind of ordinary experience may suggest that sometimes people who are bad guys are pretty well off. And that is a kind of common experience. And then the question is, can we somehow demonstrate? Is there going to be a philosophical argument to show that you're actually going to have a better life, that you are going to be happier if you are a just person? So that is the most ambitious project of the Republic. And the question, what justice is actually kind of treated as the more manageable question. There is a positive account of justice, and we are going to turn to this in the next recording. For now, I want to talk just about a brief argument in Book 1 of the Republic. The Republic has 10 books, so-called books, which are kind of comparable to chapters. And this brief argument should be famous. It is a kind of ancestor of a super famous argument in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, and it's called the function argument. But people tend to think that the function argument is an Aristotelian thing, and the function argument that is in Book 1 of the Republic isn't necessarily that much discussed, but it is a very interesting argument. And so I want to talk about this today. The function argument starts from the premise that things have a function. So, for example, the function of the eye is to see, the function of the ears is to hear, the function of a knife is to cut, and so on and so forth. Now, if you think that, say, the function of the knife is to cut, then you can ask yourself, well, what is a good knife? What would it be for the knife to be an excellent or virtuous knife? Well, the good knife is good at cutting. So the more general idea here is that for everything that has a function, it also has a virtue. And the virtue is to perform one's function well. Now, what is something's function? Because you could say, I can use my knife for a lot of things. I can use my knife as a paperweight, but being a paperweight is not the function of the knife. Something's function, the claim is that which is either kind of uniquely the thing that you can do with it, or it is the thing that you can best do with it. And that's in the case of the knife, that's cutting. In the case of the eyes, that's seeing, and so on and so forth. So, and then the question is whether there is a function of the human soul. And initially, Socrates proposes that the function of the human soul is to deliberate and to take care of things. But then he makes an even more general claim, and he says, well, the function of the soul is to live. Now, if living is is the function of the soul, and if we apply the kinds of premises that we already looked at, then it would seem that the virtue or excellence of the soul is to perform this function well, namely to live well. And now Socrates plugs in a premise that we already saw in the Meno, and that is a kind of complicated premise, which we'll talk about more next time, namely that justice and virtue are kind of the same thing. So then the thought is, well, it's not just that the good soul is the soul that is living well, but the just soul, the soul with justice, is living well. And now think back to our question. Is it to my advantage to be just? Am I going to be happy if I am a just person? Yes, because what we have seen is that the just soul is the soul that has a good life. So that's an argument right at the beginning of the Republic, and Plato kind of flags it as not quite satisfactory. So the interlocutors in the Republic, they are kind of, getting back to Socrates and saying, I don't yet believe it. So you have not yet demonstrated to us that really we are better off if we are just people. But what I want to focus on now is just this idea that justice would be to perform one's particular function or task or job well. The Greek word that is translated as function is ergon, and literally that just means work or job. So the thought is, the soul's job is living, deliberating, taking care of things in life. That is the job or function or work of the soul. And if now the claim is that justice is to perform one's particular function or task well, you might think that is exactly what Meno was proposing in his first definition, in his first attempt at definition in the Meno, which Socrates rejected. Because recall that definitional proposal, which is called the swarm of virtues proposal, where Meno said, well, here's my view about what virtue is. It is for the father to do such and such well, and for the woman to do such and such well, and for the kid to do such and such well, and for the grandfather to do such and such well. And you might think that kind of in general, what that means is virtue is for everyone to perform their particular task well. So it could be kind of really stunning that even though we rejected that proposal as completely unsatisfactory in the Meno, now it seems as if Socrates is putting forward a version thereof. So your homework puzzle for today is, what is the difference? Why is the function argument, which says that justice is to perform one's function well, why is that different and better than Meno's swarm of virtue reply?